Hi Vera, nice to see you here in the hub.
Yeah,
So
thank
just to explain to you, Vera is a 20 times holder of national records in Switzerland in freediving. And as well, you're participating in World Championships very soon, and you can support her and find her on her website on the link below. And we're going to discuss today a very specific topic that is not very usual in freediving, in the freediving community, is trauma, because you've experienced a lot of these. And what can you tell us, first of all, about your experience and what you went through and how it caused your practice of freediving?
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to meet you, especially in beautiful Dahab. Well, the thing is, already in the first year of my freediving experience, I had an unfortunate event. Basically, I had a perforation in my right eardrum, and that was caused, unfortunately, by a medical mistake. So, and this perforation was rather big, and unfortunately, it took me almost 6 years to fix it, it required several surgeries because the extent of the damage was really difficult to fix. So in 2018, so I started freediving. I quickly started enjoying competitions, and I also became an instructor. And then just after this first month of bliss, I had this medical mistake happening to me, and that caused me to stop for, at the beginning I stopped for 2 years, looking everywhere in different countries for a doctor, a surgeon, a specialist that could actually help me. And I was very inexperienced back then, and for sure I don't have a background in medicine or in ENT, so I didn't understand that it was such a big problem to solve in the beginning. So, and then after seeing different doctors in different countries and being hearing that they refused to help me because they didn't know how, and they all thought that for me diving was absolutely impossible. I finally found a specialist that tried to perform the first 2 surgeries in Lausanne, and during this time I was just patiently waiting and going crazy at the same time, of course, because I just wanted to go back to the water. But I just waited. I put everything on standby, and I really believe that, you wait for a few months, you have the first surgery, and then they tell you, okay, downtime is about 1 month. In 1 month we'll check, and doctors, of course, never promise you that they're going to be successful, but they give you the stats, and you believe that, if you're a good patient and you follow everything that they tell you to do, at some point you're going to just heal. But unfortunately, after these 2 first years completely dry, the second surgery failed, and this doctor told me that it was impossible to fix me. And although I had asked him to help me find one of his colleagues to try again, he told me that basically I didn't have time to lose, that it was an impossible case, and that I should never dive again. And in any case, it was my fault because freediving is a dangerous sport. While I really want to insist on the fact that the accident did not even happen in the water. I had an infection, I went to a hospital in a foreign country, and in the hospital the doctors messed up and they sprayed water in my ear after I told them not to use any water and to be very careful, because probably of barrier language or ignorance. So basically there was hearing from a Swiss doctor that you trusted for 2 years to try to get you back to your biggest passion, that you should just give up and that it's your fault, was very hurtful. Also because I went to him and I really asked him for help, and I even asked him to put me in contact with another specialist, even in another country. And I don't know if it was because of his ego, but he basically told me that it was impossible to give up. And I do not give up, of course. So I did not give up, and I kept looking for solutions. But at that point, I was really desperate, and I felt really abandoned and alone in my quest for a solution. So back then, I decided, without telling anyone of my friends or my family, to just go back to the sea and try to dive, even with the preparation, because I needed to know if I was just being very stubborn, and maybe it wasn't even something that I liked that much, and maybe it wasn't worth like wasting years of my life to fight for my right to dive, while in fact maybe I didn't even like it that much. So, and this was in 2020, and I came back here in Dahab, and I found someone who was okay to go diving with me, although normally you're never supposed to dive with an injury or a perforation. But I just needed to find out, what was the feeling that I had in the water, and it was absolutely, how can I say, overwhelming, and it was overall a very positive experience to be back in the water again, although I had a handicap. And although it was very difficult because I was having infections and noises, and air was escaping, and it was not so easy to focus on equalizing the other eardrum because I had this problem that was a constant reminder of the problem that I still had, that I had been trying to solve for several years, and that for sure I had to find a way to solve if I wanted to continue in my freediving career. But so this was in 2020, and so I decided that despite the handicap, I was going to try to dive and do my best and try to break a Swiss record, which had been my dream since the beginning of my experience. And I did, with little training, just focusing on my mind game, and I actually broke all the depth Swiss records in one competition, and I think it was because of this great motivation and this even bigger gratitude that I felt to be able to be back in the water, to be freediving again, although the circumstances were far from being ideal, and also being part of the community of freedivers, especially here. For me, it's something that is very important because I feel, understood, and it's a very supportive family. So the combination of all of this power allowed me to power through any obstacle in terms of diving. So that was 2020, and then after diving I think it was a few weeks or not even 2 months, I stopped because the pain was too much, and I started looking for another surgeon. I found someone suitable in Germany. So once more, for the third time, I went to someone I didn't know, and I trusted him with my dreams, I would say. He tried to perform another surgery. He was very, very supportive. And then unfortunately it did not work. So that summer I decided to dive again, but for a couple of weeks, because I had qualified for a world championship. So I decided, okay, I'm just gonna go, because it's the first time in my life that I qualify for such an event, and I don't have a sport background before freediving. So for me it was just, okay, I'm just gonna go and see what happens, and it went very well. But then once more, I waited for the winter, had another surgery. The cycle repeated a couple of years, and every time it was harder and harder to just push through all this trauma and all this, because I was constantly reminded of this handicap that was always there, manifesting under different forms. And then in 2023, I finally tried with a third surgeon in Switzerland, in Lucerne, and I was desperate to the point that I actually approached this doctor, asking him to close my eardrum, to make him, how can I say, I wanted to not have an eardrum anymore. I just wanted to fill everything with fat, remove the little bones that allows you to hear, in order not to have to lose another year in case the surgery wasn't successful, because I really needed to move on with my life. And I considered that 5 years, more than 5 years, trying to solve a tiny hole in my eardrum did not justify me putting on standby or postponing all the things that I wanted to do. And I finally found someone that actually was open to hear. And then in the end, he convinced me to give him a chance and try a traditional tympanoplasty. It was a big, big, big leap of faith for me to trust a doctor after all that. But I did, for various reasons. And in the end, the surgery was successful. And then I took an extra year off completely to allow my everything to, to rest and heal properly. And only last summer, I started diving again. And it took a lot of courage and a lot of work on myself to get rid of the constant, terror of, messing up something that took so long to fix.
Yeah. So the terror was more about the very fact that it took you so long and you had to go through so many obstacles in order to get there.
And in general, like, since I decided that for 3 seasons, so in summer 2020, 2021 and 2022, because in 2022 again I got qualified for the World Championship and I decided to go anyways. That year I also had broken a knee, so it was far, far away from being perfect conditions, but I still recovered in time and I still did good. And in all these short seasons full of obstacles, I still managed to break, I don't know how many, but anyways, almost 30 national records. Because I think, I had a very special, every athlete in every sport has to deal with obstacles and setbacks, and injuries are unfortunately very common in most sports. But I think in freediving, I have my share of bad luck. So, and that taught me resilience, and I had to develop my own ways to deal with my own challenges. Because, for example, in freediving, if you want to go deep, and depth is actually what I like, you need to learn how to equalize the ears. There are different techniques. But in my case, with a perforation, using the most popular technique, which includes charging your mouth with air and keeping it here in order to be able to continue equalizing the ears going down, was not an option for me, because if I created pressure here, since I had a hole, the air would escape. So I had to figure out my own very personal way to go deep, and then and also deal with this mental charge and this extra difficulty of first of all always be constantly reminded of my limitations, and also the frustration of accepting that I was in that situation for so long because of a stupid human mistake that could have been avoided if the person just said, I didn't understand, or I don't know what to do, or let me call a colleague. Being a Swiss person growing up in Switzerland, you go to a hospital just because you have a ear infection, and then you come out with this. It's like, medical mistakes happen everywhere, happen all the time everywhere, but like this had a huge impact on my career, and it was a lot to digest and to accept and to forgive. It took me years. So I was not able to talk about it at all for 2 years, and I think it took me another 2 years to be able to tell this story without crying.
Yeah.
So
is there still emotion these days?
Yeah.
Nowadays, when you refer to that, we can feel that the emotion is still there.
Yeah. But it's much easier now, because finally, since last year, I had the whole season of, I competed a little bit, but mostly I focused on not going very deep and on teaching, because finally I could teach since I was whole again, and that way I use teaching as a therapy also, because I had to be in the water and doing repetitive dives, very shallow, and focusing on other people's needs instead of mine. So the moment that I felt comfortable enough to do that, it was excellent because I could really focus on other people and in a way work on my own. I was always vigilant, I was always aware that I would not have pushed or made a mistake, because this is something that I could not forgive, myself.
Yeah,
but it was an excellent tool to defocus on, from the problem. And therefore I also canceled on my World Championships participation last year. I just decided to stay here and, work on small things and start again from the bottom in a way. And that was it was an easy decision, but at the same time it was a tough decision for my ego, because I had been waiting, since September 2018 to be able to, because that was when the accident happened. I had been waiting for 6 years at least to be able to be like everyone else. And then I decided to be like everyone else. I needed time, and I needed to allow myself time to just subconsciously work on my trauma in order to get rid of it. And now this year, I think I'm finally, ready. I can dive, and I don't have to, and I don't think about my eardrum and worry constantly that maybe something will happen, or maybe, because at some point I was also worried that the other eardrum would have, like whenever I have the slightest doubt that maybe I'm not equalizing perfectly, I immediately go up. Like my brain doesn't think, my body already turned and is already swimming up. Something like this should never, you should be more in control. You shouldn't let your fears control you.
Well, that's an interesting point. It's like the trauma itself brings a lot of emotions, but as well on the protective aspect of things, the trauma itself has defense mechanisms to be, because it's like a trauma is packed up with these mechanisms in order to be sure that you don't encounter the problem again that you had to face before experiencing the trauma. So it's like an animal being hurt loses vigilance after being hurt. The potential exposure to damage is going to increase. So the trauma itself and the reactions due to trauma can be caused just in order to be protected from the conditions, the initial conditions. So an interesting indicator that allows you to understand whether the trauma is still active or not is if there are any automatic behaviors. Like first of all, the emotion raised when the topic is raised is one of the indicators, and the other one, another very effective one, is like when you go down, on when you face diving and going for a dive, is there any reaction from the body that is automatic, that creates tension or anything noticeable, so that you identify straight away that, okay, this is not like the smoothest approach to diving. My body is saying something, is indicating signals.
Yes, I understand. So, you said it yourself before, like you noticed in me when I tell this story that it still has an impact, an emotional one. For when it comes to diving, I think because of the dives, for example, that I've been doing in the past days, I think I'm finally really getting rid of that extra weight in a way, because there are stress factors, especially in the way that I train depth, and also because I'm preparing for something important for me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there is an emotional response, heart rate increases, and things like that. And also I have a terrible neck pain, but I don't know if that's related or not. It probably is. But at the same time, compared to what was happening last season, last season it was incredible what was happening, because I would go to the water a bit fearful, but like not completely, especially at the beginning of the season. And then I would do my first dive and realize that, okay, everything is actually working. So I was testing that everything was working, being very delicate when I was equalizing the ears. Everything would work fine the first dive of a session. Then I would go up, breathe, let other people dive, and then when it was my time to do to perform my second session dive, sorry,
Okay.
my right eustachian tube, so the canal that let the air pass and go equalize the eardrum, on the side that underwent 5 surgeries and endless problems, would lock, close. And that's a mechanical, so it's debatable. There isn't really literature, there aren't studies or data about this, because I don't think anyone had to research. I'm probably one of the only cases that forced herself to dive for a few seasons with the perforation in modern freediving, I mean. And so I noticed that, like, as soon as my body would recognize that I was diving, after the first dive, the mechanism of defense was to close the eustachian tube, because it's true that in the previous season I had water going in,
Wow.
and sometimes I would feel it dripping down in the nasal cavity.
Okay, wow.
And that's, of course, it's potentially dangerous because it's dirty, it's full of life. We're talking about a natural environment, especially here the water is rather clean, but it's actually full of microorganisms, and also we're close to a town in a country that doesn't exactly recycle everything, and the water system is also for sure leaking. So in the water, like, it's not ideal to have water going in directly into your middle ear and going down from the inside. So I noticed that this poor eustachian tube just would lock open, and that was making equalization impossible. And the only thing that worked was to relax. But it's difficult to get rid of such a mechanism, such an involuntary mechanism that had developed over years to protect you from something that it's completely new and unnatural in a way. So it took a long time.
And especially, how did you cope? How did you find out solutions in order to let these phenomenon disappear, or to let them transform? What was the trigger for you to?
Well, the triggers are, I would say, maybe the methods that I use are various, and they're very intuitive, because I never really had a mental coach or I mean, I've been in the community, in the freediving community for a long time, so sometimes I hear about some tricks and things that other people do. Yeah. But I usually don't think actively about solutions, and they usually come to me in my own mind during the dives, and I've had these moments like many times in my freediving career where I'm diving, and then like boom, I find this incredible strategy. For example, I'm not inventing anything here. For example, mantras are very good, and they are always change from a competition to the next. I usually, if I notice that I'm stressed or that I need to stay focused during the dive, I come up with, because I don't really believe in them if I prepare my mind before when I'm on land. So I sometimes use mantras, to just like really short mantras that make sense for me, either in English or in Italian, because it's my mother language, and I'm just a few words, like 2 or 3 words that make sense in the moment, and just repeat them and focus on that. Another tool, it's visualization. This, yes, you can do before. So you just visualize the different parts of the dive. You actually can visualize in the smallest details, from the moment you wake up in the morning to every step of the way, everything that you do until you're in the water. And then you also visualize the dive in detail, and then you visualize everything that can go wrong, and then you visualize how you're gonna solve everything, and then you put everything together, and you can do this over actually weeks, until the goal is you go to your dive, especially if this is now I'm talking more like performance dives. you go to the dive with the feeling because you visualize everything so well, and of course you end the visualization imagining that it's a triumph, that you're victorious, you're happy, and so you go to the dive and you feel as if you have done it 1,000 times already. Even if it's a PB, even if it's a new depth, a new personal best, a little bit deeper than what you have actually been able to perform physically before. But if you convince yourself that you know exactly how to manage every single detail of the dive, and also including everything that could go wrong, then it's a good tool. What else? Then I use anchors as well. For example, colors or words or smells or emotions, and I try to link them with something with some sort of visual input that I could see in the dive.
Yeah.
Can be my nails in no fins. I really like to do no fins. So in no fins is basically the only dive where I actually have a glimpse of my nails during
through visualization. So
on the way up, I sometimes see for half a second, every few strokes, the color of my nails, and I actually have this tradition where before every competition I go to do my nails and to get ready for this date with the sea, and I choose a color that is going to be representative for my, I don't know, I just have an intuition and I follow that intuition and I choose a color that it's visible as well, and and then I visualize for a few days. Well, I see it all the time because it's hands, like you see your hands every day all the time, and then I link the color to a world and a feeling and emotion, and during my diving I don't look at them unless I notice on the way up if I'm doing something really hard. I found myself looking at them, or just not, I mean, because we were moving all the time, but like as soon as I would just have a glimpse of this color, it would just give me that emotion, that amplified that emotion that I linked to this color. What
Wonderful.
else?
It's very rare to have a visual anchoring. It's more often a touch or using a sound or touch, but visual is quite rare actually.
I think some people also feel, I think I've heard that other people, so when you're free falling, you're attached to the line with a lanyard, right? And some lanyards have a carabiner that it's made of metal, and they hear it moving on the line, and I think maybe there is something to do with that. But I don't hear my carabiner, so. But yeah, that's for sound that could be useful. What else?
Yeah, so far you've been using 3 different mental preparation tools. Even intuitively, or whether you got these tips from someone.
Yeah.
And the actual response was, so the response you identified in your tube was actually decreased by the practice of these 3 different tools.
Yes, absolutely, and also by the fact that I was spending a lot of time in the water. And I think what really worked last year was, other than these tools, the fact that I decided to focus on teaching instead of training for myself, and therefore I was, as I said before, I was really focused. I was there for other people, beginners, people that were with their first experiences in the water, that I needed. I have a very strong sense of, how can I say, protection for other people. And this is also something that I adore about my jobs in sport teaching and coaching, because your main role is to keep other people safe and create a safe environment where they can express themselves and that therefore learn and improve also, their skills, but their relationship with themselves. So when you're teaching freediving or even skiing or rock climbing or yoga, at the same, you're supposed to teach them what to do, how to move. But I think that the most important is, keep them safe and make them have fun. and then of course, like as a consequence, I also learned. But so focusing on like having something to do that was not for me, but it was for other people, was probably what helped me the most last year.
Especially, that's very interesting because you mentioned that earlier, and the very fact that you were focused on the other person, so you mentioned the fact that you defocused from the problem or from the performance itself as well.
Then you can relax more.
As well. And what specifically you think was different in your mindset that made it so much more easy, so much easier for you to let your body identify new possibilities and find more comfort into the practice as well? What do you think changed in your mindset? Apart from the fact that you defocused.
Well, I also think that and this is probably possible response to trauma, for many years I was the only one who truly believed that I would have healed. And I was told by family, friends, doctors of all sorts that it was probably other freedivers as well, that it was probably never going to happen. So I had to fight really hard to believe to believe and to even promise myself that I would have not stopped until I would have found a solution. And then since I had this terrible roller coaster of emotion with, anxiety, and then I was hopeful that maybe the next surgery would have solved the problem, and then every time after the first 4 surgery, I had the feeling that it did not work. Every single time, all the doctors told me, no, wait, don't worry, we're going to see in like a few weeks, and I already knew that it was not fine, and then having the massive disappointment of being told, no, it did not work. You should maybe give up, or we'll try again, but not now, blah, blah, blah. So it took a long time and then after the final surgery, when I was told it seems healed, I was not really trusting the guy, like I had a feeling it was okay, but at the same time they cut me 5 times, and they cut nerves and muscles and everything here. So I was not sure if I could feel, if I could trust my feelings. I lost a big portion of my hearing, and I also, although I was told that I was healed, I really took a full year off. So during that full year out of the water with limited hearing, I wanted to trust that I was healed, but I knew that I would have started believing that the problem was finally behind me only when I would have been able to dive properly, and I just needed a few I could not just believe that it was gone.
Absolutely.
So at the beginning, and there was a lot of fear because I was so afraid. I was afraid to find out that in fact I was right, and that unfortunately the problem was still there. So what really changed was simply the confirmation. When after a few months diving without the preparation, knowing that although I was pushing a little, not pushing in a way that I was risking injuring it, but like it took a lot of repetitions to finally accept that I was healed. And I believe, even so, I did a whole season from I think April to November. It was the longest season ever for me because I had never had the chance to dive this long. And then after that, I took the winter off. I went to do something else. I went to Switzerland and skiing the whole winter. And then when I came back now, in March, I think I still needed a few sessions to just like calm down and remind and see. Actually, I needed to prove myself that the problem was not there, because unfortunately it doesn't happen from one day to the next. You just click. You just have to reassure yourself, and
What do you think would have been your relationship to freediving if you didn't have that space with people, being an instructor, especially with beginners with a small depth? What do you think would have been your approach to performance, but as well to the fact that to freediving itself, without even trying to get results as an athlete?
That's a difficult question. So you mean, sorry, maybe I didn't understand.
At that time,
yeah, last year.
within these conditions,
Yes.
after going through all these episodes of surgery and
You would have
not
taken
being
much
sure.
longer.
Yeah,
I think.
And what specifically would make it longer, you think?
Well, the fact that maybe I wouldn't have created. So if I hadn't been an instructor and if I hadn't decided that I was gonna, basically last year I decided to just take it from where I left the whole idea of me becoming a freediving instructor. So in 2018 I became one, and then I got this problem, and then I could not really teach. I occasionally taught a little bit, but I didn't feel comfortable doing it. So, and also because of a personal situation last year, I just found myself, I just broke up with someone, and I just decided that the most logical thing was to just come back here and, start teaching again. And so I created this opportunity to focus on other people, etc. If I decided to do something else than teaching, probably could have been, if it could have gone either way. Like I could have either created I would have created another opportunity to just work on myself. I would have probably taken up a coach, because I usually train without a coach. I like to coach myself because maybe it's still part of a consequence of this trauma, but I still remain persuaded that there is nobody that can understand me the way I understand myself, and therefore I don't really trust other people to make me programs and tell me what to do in the water, because I know that I can perform very well only if I listen to myself and if I understand what's right for me. So maybe I could have taken the decision to hire a coach and just do what they said, or probably it would have taken me much longer because I would have been shy and a bit too careful probably if I was just coaching myself over a longer time. I still competed at the end of the summer last year and doing very good, but let's see, that's it. It went like that, and it went well. It was a good experience, and I helped a lot of beginners fall in love with freediving, so it was good.
Maybe it's time for me to talk about the coaching, because you just mentioned the fact that coach is someone to give programs and responsible for that. So maybe it's a responsibility as well, not to just explain. A coach is more responsible for asking questions. I think the expertise in a proper coach, is to be an expert in questioning. And the idea is always to allow the person to open a space for identifying more motivations that are way beyond the performance itself. Mental preparation is not about focusing only on the performance. The way I approach it is actually to look for motivations that are even in the dreams, even in the utopia of how we are designed as a being. And the very fact that we focused on that mostly before performance gives the route to many new possibilities that were not possible before, because the mind was totally focused on numbers, performance, results. And now it gives room to growth that is way beyond the results. It's something that justifies as well my actions and my incentives as an athlete to be in the root of meaning. So I fulfill the meaning by doing, by practicing, by being on this path. And I'm no longer conditioning my path upon the results that I aim for. So a coach is a good coach is someone that allows you to find that space, to discover that space. The tools that come along, they have to be tested in order to see if they match. So the responsibility of a coach is to provide methodology as well and test with the athlete. So there is no program that can be for sure guaranteed to results. And the idea is trial and error.
Of course.
Through trial and error. So that's just something I needed to.
No, of course you're right.
Okay, so the idea. What were your relationship to yourself when you were left on your own with your own performance or with your own approach to a dive after these events? Especially if we remove the time when you didn't have to focus on yourself but on students. So the part when before that,
the 3 seasons that I still decided to train last minute and compete. So, no, that's a difficult question. But the relationship with myself.
Self-speech.
I was way too hard at the beginning, and I was driven by fear of not being able to, how can I say? So when I started diving again in 2020, I was overwhelmed by gratitude and joy towards myself and towards the community, because in the end I had been isolated for 2 years in a country that it's my own country, yours too, but where I did not feel at all supported or understood. So I came back and at the beginning I tried to dive. I saw that, wow, it's actually working. It's not perfect. I have pain, infections, whatever, but I can dive. That was already great. And I think during the first weeks of my return to the water, there was a lot of evacuation in terms of emotions that took place. I remember I was not really, I was doing 3 things. I was sleeping, I was diving, and I was eating. And I was having like nights of, for 2-3 weeks, I was having nights of sleep of 12 hours, big afternoon naps of 4 hours, something like that. And just eating a lot, sleeping a lot, and diving and crying, so basically. And that was excellent, because I really had all these emotions that I did not feel, that I could exteriorize, I could not show them, because I had to be so strong for myself for years. And I also did know that it was not over. The battle was far from being over, but at least I had a little break where I could just let it out and go in the water. And then, so that was the beginning. And I was a mess, but at the same time, I knew that it was good for me, and so I knew that every day that passed, like, I was feeling a little bit more myself again, because it was really hard to feel alone in all this, and although I was never really alone, but at the end of the day, when you have a problem that is so important for you and nobody really knows what to say, and I don't really maybe want to talk about it because they don't know how to help, and it's not easy. So that was the beginning. And then I started feeling much lighter, and then there was a competition, and then decided to just go and do it. And in very few sessions, I found someone crazy enough to train me with the preparation for a competition that was happening 12 days after the moment we decided to do it. And I decided to do 4 disciplines, all the Swiss records, like we were going, it was like go big or go home. And we did it, and we were successful, because it was such an impossible challenge that it worked. It was, but at the same time, so back then I remember that during my training, we put way, I still managed to do it, to do 4 records with depths from 40 plus to 60 plus in all disciplines. It was a lot, because I went from never being an athlete to be a full-on machine with a handicap, with a huge emotional charge, and also with the worry that maybe it was my only chance to ever do a competition, because I did not know what would have happened. I knew that I accepted the risk that I could have messed up my eardrum forever and never dive again, for real.
Yeah. So the fear was really strong, potentially.
Well, nobody knew. I mean, everyone keeps telling you that you should never dive with the eardrum open, and I decided to go for like for this how can I say, demanding challenge. So that was super stressful, positive but stressful, and I also realized that I already entered very quickly of course, like, you cannot train like that. I was training almost every day, different disciplines, without a previous mental or physical preparation. So I very quickly overtrained, and also because I entered a cycle that it's very dangerous, where I was well, I had this goal, and the deadline was so short in time that I had an ambitious, like, the training plan is, nobody here would share it. Like, actually, they were not okay with that. My colleagues, freedivers, they were like, no, you should not do it, blah 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 blah, because it's too much. And anyway, so I did it, but then I was starting to feel angry or disappointed in myself the couple of days where I did not reach the target depth that I was supposed to reach, because I needed to go so fast, so deep, so fast to get to the competition. So, and I was not enjoying. I mean, I was enjoying it, but I experienced for the first time being in a bad mood after a session, just because you turn 3 meters before the end of the line, and then being really in a bad mood after, and I had to go through to that experience, of course, to probably to understand that it's pointless to be so unkind with yourself just because you have it was a mess.
So you realized that very quickly, apparently.
Yeah, well, this is my life in general. Everything goes very fast. Yeah. When something happens, it happens all together and in a very short time. And I think it's something that probably made me so strong also, and so resilient, not just in freediving in general. But yeah, that was the beginning, and against all the odds, everything went amazing. So, and then I was pumped, and my ego was like, "Hey, you can do anything you want, because you came out of the nowhere, and you could do all this, considering the situation." Blah blah blah. So there was another competition, like 2 weeks after, 1 week after, and I was already overtrained, burnt out after this. So I registered. I went to the competition. I did not train because I did not have the strength to do it, and I thought, okay, I trained already like a machine for this previous competition, so I'm just gonna go, and I don't need to train. I can just do it. And I experienced my first almost blackout doing that. So it was. I mean, everyone has to start somewhere, especially if you're deciding how to do something relatively new by yourself with a situation that it's not very clear or ideal. People make mistakes, and I certainly did some of them. But then I learned, and then the next 2 seasons, where I went to the 2 World Championships, and that's basically the only competitions that I had done, almost the only one that I had done those years. That was also very, very bold of me, because I didn't really prepare that much during the year, because I was so busy trying to find a surgeon, and then to get a surgery, and then being disappointed, depressed, and then going back up from overcoming that difficulty. And then it was already December, and then I was offered the possibility to go to a big World Championship, so I just went both times. I also, without money, every time I had to do the impossible to find the money to go, because nobody ever helped me in terms of financial support. So every time I would arrive and then had a little meltdown, arrive in the competition place, and a few weeks before, like 2, 3, 4 weeks before the competition, and then every time I was every time in those 2 years, I was doing 3, 4 jobs at the same time for months before going there, so that I could afford that. And so I did not have time to train, and also in Switzerland, in Lausanne, I mean, if you're working so much, you can't really find depth. So, and I was cycling to work and running back and this and that. So it was, it was a lot. Then to just arrive and start the training in the water, just to find out that I just needed to heal my wounds first in order to be able to focus on training again. And every time there was a different challenge, and because I still had the preparation, every time I felt that my body needed to rest much more in order not to get sick, because I was always feeling here, the side of the head, like inflamed, and always a sore throat, and a bit cold, and like a bit feverish. And so I would definitely not recommend anyone to do the same thing.
Yeah.
But for me, it was, I guess, a necessity, and I did the best I could. But so in all that process, there was always a lot of extra difficulty to overcome that made, in the end, the dives somehow, especially in the competitions, easy, because I knew that I did not have 1/10 of the preparation of the others, but I still could dive the same depth. And so somehow, for me, especially in competitions, I really like them because I was always very emotional, and I never really dealt well with stress. And I still compete because it's an excellent tool for me to just, there is a connotation of surrendering and letting go for me, and release when finally the countdown finishes and you have to go. You have a window of 30 seconds, and then you have to start your dive, and there is no going back, or you have to start.
Yeah, especially this moment is really precious to me. That's I would love to hear what you feel, what you go through when you refer to surrendering. That's a key word that I really connect to. And how does it feel when you prepare yourself before entering the water, and the whole process until going down?
Mm-hmm. Well, okay, so sometimes the dive starts even the evening before for me, because it depends. I've had seasons where it was like that, season where I did not maybe have the focus, or I also try and experiment different things.
So just to rephrase that, let's imagine your ideal dive within a competition. Within a competition, like the ideal scenario that you've experienced. Just connect to that, and take some time and describe, like, say for instance, you have 30 seconds to prepare now.
Yeah, but it starts a little bit before that. Like, really, the dive. Okay, I know that the dive starts when you're holding. You take your big last breath, and then you just go. But in fact, I think to prepare properly and to already enter the diving mode. In an ideal world, and when I'm very disciplined, I manage to do this. It's really like when I open my eyes in the morning, or as I was saying, like when I go to bed in the evening, I'm so focused, and I want to stay in diving mode. So I'm everything I do is preparing for the dive, and like many other athletes in other sports, they can prepare for something like weeks in advance. Anyways, okay, that's a long story, but basically, okay, I go to bed, I try to make sure that my rest is the best possible rest. So I try to avoid all the distractions. I really, like, for me, almost more important than training is rest. And so having the perfect night of sleep over many nights before the dive, it's crucial. Okay, so, and then you wake up. I wake up. I try to not look at my phone. I just stay really present. And I don't do anything really special. I usually don't eat. I just, I don't know, get ready and go to wherever the competition is. You always have to be there 1 hour before and be inside of the judges. It's a rule. So I use that time for sometimes stretching, sometimes self-massage, sometimes just tapping and just I don't really have one protocol, but it's more a time that I happily dedicate myself. So I just focus on making sure that like I'm consecrating the time to make myself happy and enjoy the moment. Then I suit up, I go to the water, I arrive. Many people do warm-up dives, so they do a couple of dives or one dive before the big dive. I don't do that. I don't look at anyone in the eyes usually, or sometimes I smile at my friends, but like just without allowing any emotions to insinuate. I just stay focused and focus on what I have to do and defocus. I don't want my attention to get caught in anything or anyone. It doesn't matter. Everything can wait those 10 minutes, right? So then I arrive at the line, I wait. When it's my turn to go at the main line, I clip myself. I usually smile to the judges and remind them that I'm a bit deaf, so they have to make a loud countdown because otherwise I stress that I might not hear it. And then 3 minutes pass. At the end of the countdown, I take a big final breath, remove the snorkel, start the descent. And it's interesting I always like to observe that, especially those last 2 minutes, go very quickly. And I learned that I program my mind also to believe that it's absolutely pointless to stress about it, because in no time it will be over, and in no time you just have to go. So, in brackets, I did my first jump skydiving last year, and 1 minute before the jump was like, I had the moment of like, oh, God, now I really need to jump, and then I reminded myself, no, it's a normal countdown. It's pointless to even get emotional about it. It's gonna be over in no time, so just relax. And I did, and it went perfect. So, okay, and then you start the dive, and for me, starting the dive is a moment of release, because I've been waiting for it for a long time. I've been making sacrifices over a month, and there is a lot of expectation and and then you know that whatever happens, you showed up, you started your dive. Whatever happens after, doesn't matter. You got there, and that for me is already. It doesn't mean that I am sure that I'm gonna complete the dive or the performance that I announced, but for me that's a wonderful moment, because I'm like, okay, wow, great. I usually give my body the possibility to use the autopilot. At least in the first part of the dive, I just started dive. I don't think at all. And I've had situations where I was so stressed that I don't remember at all this part of the dive. And I think it was because my heart was beating out of my chest. That was the beginning of my competition experiences. I remember I had thoughts, especially in the first competition, I was like, I'm gonna have a heart attack. This is not safe at all. And then somehow at the end of the countdown, I just put in practice without thinking what I had built and what I had learned that I had to do, and everything went very well. So, okay, this is the beginning of the descent. You have to use a little bit more power until you reach a certain depth, where you start becoming less and less buoyant, and then you stop moving and you enter free fall. Free fall is the part of the dive from around 20 meters or so to the bottom, to the deepest part, where you can just relax. And you probably think, easy, let's just relax, but it's not always easy, because especially if there is a lot of emotional charge. I always found that for me, free falling was the most difficult part, because you don't have to do anything. You just have to relax and enjoy and be patient and just, wait and enjoy. So it's not always easy. And then in this part, especially nowadays, I really focus on how grateful I am that my big dream of being able to free dive like everyone else without a perforation is like it's been, how can I say, I reached that, the dream happened. I'm already doing what I was dreaming to be able to do, literally dreaming. Like I was dreaming that I was diving in silence without bubbles of air coming out of my ear for 6 years. So now I can do it. And when I remind myself that, I'm like, okay, yeah, good. And then I touch down. I have an alarm a few meters before, so that if by some sort of miracle I'm so relaxed that I'm in a dreamy state, I wake up a few seconds before, so that I remember that I don't have to just free fall to the bottom of the ocean, but I have to be prepared to do something. And then I take a tag from the bottom to bring it to the judges. I give one pull, and then I just go up. And sometimes, 99% of the times for me, when I'm starting the ascent, I know that the dive is in my pocket, because I'm never really hypoxic at the surface. I never really, except for this one time that I mentioned briefly before, I get to the surface, I might be tired or something, but I'm always fresh. I never pushed enough, or I never reached depths that for me are too demanding, to the point that I might not be 100% there with my mind. Mm-hmm. So I know that whatever I'm doing, if it's a one-off-in dive, even better, because I feel I have an engine on my feet, so I know that I'm gonna sprint up. And if it's no fin, somehow I trust my body enough to bring me back. And but especially with no fins, which is the discipline that I prefer at the moment, it's tough. Like this morning I did 50 meters with a rather big jump, because a few days ago I did 40, 2 times for the first time this year. Then I took 2 days off, I did 45 yesterday, and today I did 50. And it was a demanding dive. So going up, I was feeling that my legs especially were moving a bit slower than I would have liked. And what I did was just, what did I do? I stayed present. Mm-hmm. The most important thing for me, especially in a moment of where I really need all my focus, is force myself not just not looking up, but not even think about looking up, or not think about breathing or anything like that. I just need to stay there and enjoy, and even if it's not so enjoyable, yeah, that's it. I don't know. Today I was not thinking about anything. Sometimes I repeat things. Like one time I came up with just keep swimming, and then I found out that it was from Nemo, the movie. I thought I had been very creative with that mantra, but no. But yeah, I was so proud of myself. I told my friend, I was like, I was thinking that, and and they were like, it's from Nemo. Wow, okay.
Dory.
Exactly. If I have a spirit animal, it's clearly Dory, because my memory is very, very short. Which makes my life full of surprises, because I keep surprising myself with things that I probably already knew. And every time it's something great.
So you can be even more grateful then.
I'm super grateful. Yeah, so that's, and then I arrive at the surface. I have to perform in front of looking at the judges. I have to remove my facial equipment, which normally is a nose clip. I just remove it. I have to give an okay sign and say I am okay, and then hold myself well above the surface to show that I'm not falling down, but and then after some time, they give you a white card or not. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Thank you. That's very precious, to go through for people that either listen or watch this video, to get to know
what's going on
in your mind, in your approach, in your body, in your senses. That's very unique. Everyone has a unique...
I could have romanticized it a little bit, because there are other things that I didn't mention, like the beautiful being, the light filtering from the surface, becoming more and more bright when you're approaching. Even if I don't look up, I feel it. I see it. And that's in a way, like you're really going towards the light. It's you know that subconsciously and because of your experience that the closer you get, it means that you're going to feel great soon, because you're going to be breathing soon, and also the intensity of the blue, depending on where you're diving, changes, of course. The deeper you go, the darker and more intense it becomes. And also your own buoyancy, it feels great because of the fact that the deeper you go, the more pressure there is, and the more your airspace is, most importantly, the lungs are compressed. And that's something that allows you to do the free fall phase that I was explaining before, because at the beginning you have to kind of fight a little bit to get to a certain depth, because you're being pushed up by the volume of your lungs, amongst other things, and then they decrease, and at some point you start really feeling that you're sinking. And this let go and abandonment and acceptance as well, that I was briefly introducing before, becomes crucial because like it's very unnatural to allow, accept, and actually go and look, put yourself in a situation that you're sinking down to the bottom of the ocean. It's not normal for human beings to just do that. Like it's a creative way to use physics law to our an advantage, but it requires to accept that for a moment you're not in control so much of. You can be in control of many things. For example, you can observe your mind, you can observe your thoughts, you can try to have a meditative approach and recognize the thoughts that are just curved balls that your brain throws at you to get you out of this uncomfortable, new, potentially threatening and weird situation. And this is an excellent exercise. It's an extreme dynamic meditation for me. And this is why I like it also, because it allows me to understand how many stupid thoughts, not stupid, but like weak thoughts I sometimes have. And I just need to, and especially at the beginning of a season where I haven't been diving before, or if I'm tired, or I have whatever reasons to be whiny, and it's incredible to observe how much my brain sometimes, at any level, wants to take me out of the situation.
To take you out of the situation, like for instance, thoughts that would doubt the very fact, the very practice.
Wow,
the
biggest trick, the biggest problems for me are the doubt that is the most sabotaging for me, which is also very good to have insert. I don't know. It's the doubt that maybe I'm not equalizing well, considering my past. Maybe I am equalizing well, but like this is so easy, because I can fall into that very easily. It's the biggest weapon that my brain can use against myself if it wants to convince me to go back and breathe without having to accept the discomfort for a few seconds more or for a minute more or whatever. Like I know rationally that I can do this, and I am pushing myself. Nobody's pointing a gun to my head and telling me you have to go deep, and I'm not even getting paid for it, So it's something that I decide to do because I think that because I'm curious and I know that there is something to discover there for me. But yet sometimes, most of the time, my brain wants to throw, I call them curveballs, like sabotaging thoughts. Are you really equalizing well, or you risk for another 5 years of your life? Wouldn't it be wiser to just go back home and find another safer hobby? No, this doesn't happen. But basically, I think it's normal that this is also how we evolve and become more resilient. Like a little bit of stress exposure, a little bit of stepping out of your comfort zone is good. But then sometimes it can be perceived as too much, or you just want to be lazier, and there's nothing fundamentally wrong with it. Maybe it's because you need more rest, maybe it's because you have other things that you need to solve in your life in order to be able to abandon yourself to something that can be very intense. Anyways, so basically to be able to relax in the water, sinking down, you have to accept that you can't be in control of everything. And for human beings, this is very difficult, especially in a society where we are persuaded where we have to be performing all the time and being efficient and being the most beautiful ones and the strongest ones and I don't know, we always, there is this competition in society that wants us, that pushes us to try to control everything in order to succeed in whatever we want to do. But then there are also things that we, being in the sea and accepting that you're sinking down for like 30, 40, 50, whatever, 100 meters for some. It requires a lot of acceptance and a lot of letting go.
Who do you think would benefit the most from this mindset offered through freediving in society?
Well, everyone, I think.
Everyone. Because
for a moment you're putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation that you can only accept and enjoy if you accept. And if you accept that you can't be controlling every aspect of your mind and of your life, you find ways to connect and to. I see freediving also as a mirror. Like you have to look into yourself. You can't ignore these voices or the dialogue that you use with the wording and the kind of dialogue that you have, sorry for the microphone, with yourself. Like in a moment where you are suspended in water and for a few maybe minutes you are alone with yourself, like there is no more lying there. You you have a privileged moment with yourself, and then you can decide to use it in the best way you want. But I think especially if we're talking about depth, because this is what I know most. You can get away with avoiding this kind of introspection until a certain depth, but then it becomes inevitable to be honest with yourself. And for example, for me at the beginning, I was just super excited. I loved it, and it was easy for me. I could equalize, no problem, and I rather easily went to 50 meters without any problem. And then when I started going a little bit deeper, I remember I had a phase where all of a sudden everything scared me. I did not understand why or what, but I had a moment of rejection and being a bit scared. And then I understood that I had to take a big step back, and not necessarily in terms of depth, but I had to go and solve other issues in my life that maybe I was, avoiding. Difficult emotions. That I remember I had this two difficult emotions that were coming out also in the dives, and that pissed me off, of course, because that was the last thing I wanted to feel. And the emotions were anger and sadness. And then I realized, doing important work on myself, I guess it's called the psychological work, or I understood that the problem, that it was not a coincidence that there were the two emotions that were coming up, because it was also the two emotions that I wanted to feel the least in my life. I was always avoiding to feel sad, and I was always compensating with being this jolly, noisy, always laughing, sarcastic person. I still am. And also anger. I had a lot of anger, but again, I was never really allowing myself, or maybe I was not allowed, I don't know, to feel like that. And to be able to freedive, I had to understand this, try to really question myself and understand where these things were coming from. I realized that it was coming from my family. I had to talk with my parents. I had to even go through family pictures of my childhood and realize that there was a lot of I mean, nothing okay, something traumatic happened, but nothing dramatic. I had a relatively good, happy childhood in a nice country, like it's okay. But still, I had to go through all of that to be able to let go and be able to, yeah, for me, it really went through that. So identifying difficult emotions and experience them and understand the causes, and then really feel them, experience them in order to let them behind, and then be able to dive. It was not something that I could do otherwise. And then I was able to go deeper, but...
What do you think could your experience, the physical trauma and the psychological trauma to go through medical assistance that was giving you all this feedback that it might not be possible, might not, etc. What do you think you gained specifically from that whole set of events?
Well, I'm convinced that that if I have the right, I mean, I don't know if this is a very good answer. What do you think?
Yeah, take your time.
Well, I mean, I gained a great deal of self-confidence, and I learned how to step up and fight for myself, which is something maybe that I didn't really know how to do before. And I also, I discovered that I have an inner strength that it's, much bigger than I would have ever imagined. Also because talking about this with other people passionate about freediving, most of them told me that they would have just found something else to do, they wouldn't have had the motivation and the strength to continue, this fight that seemed very, very, well, hard and endless. So now, and I know that since I want to continue a little bit in this direction, because I fought so hard to get here that I'm just gonna be like, okay, bye.
Give you
I'm
like
just gonna do
support level to be sure that you never go you never go back.
No, I'm persuaded that I'm very strong, because all the achievements that I reached, every time it was without preparation, without proper preparation, without means, without money, without 2 eardrums, without equalizing properly, and all of this. So I know that if I now that I have all the possibilities like everyone else, I think I can. I want to see where's the limit, or at least in some aspects. I don't know if I will want to continue competing forever, because that's not the end goal. Like all these years of almost forced break made me realize that I don't really want to spend the rest of my life diving alongside the line. I want to go and see the animals. I want to go and observe the beauties of nature. I don't really care that much about the numbers. I feel yet that I still have a couple of results to make, because I've been desiring them for a few years, and now I want to just offer that to myself, and offer that experience to myself, not necessarily the result or the number or the title, but I think I wanted to do it, and I think I deserve it after all this struggle, and then we'll see. But I don't know if I necessarily. I think what I meant with I want to explore what the limit is, doesn't necessarily mean that I want to go to 100 meters, or that I want to do push in terms of numbers. Although I would push a little bit, because I chose to be a freediving athlete, so now I can be one, and I will do it for a little bit. But I have other projects that I would like to explore that include bringing more awareness to a bigger audience regarding environmental protection and this kind of things.
Wonderful.
This is more important than just bringing a tag to a judge from the bottom of a line.
Is there something you want to communicate on about these aspirations?
Just if you're interested in seeing what I'm gonna do in the next months or years, you can follow me on Instagram or on my website. And I'm also hoping to start giving conferences, because for many years, as you all know, my goal was to get rid of this problem, to be able to dive, and the fact that although it took me a couple of years to start to speak up about it, especially through social media, when I started to tell my story, I started to receive a lot of messages from people that were not even freedivers, but that somehow ended up on my profile and heard what I had to go through to be able to do what I like, and that I was not giving up, and that was the main reason why I actually started focusing a little bit more on my Instagram in 2020, because I really did not believe in social media, or, well, believe is not a religion, but I mean, I was not a big fan of also taking pictures and this kind of stuff. I was just, oh, this is very superficial, it's just for people, full of themselves, and I don't want to have to do it. But then I started to post a little bit about my story, and then messages from people telling me that it was giving them inspiration and hope and maybe motivation to actually start something that they wanted to do for a long time and they didn't know how, or that had been told that they could not do a certain thing, but that maybe, this kind of, how can I say, feeling that I can actually inspire people to do what they want, and not to listen to those who are trying to push them down. It's a great motivation for me. So I don't necessarily, and I'm happy because now I have also some sort of happy ending and not just the struggle story to bring. So I really would like to start doing conferences and or even small events. I've done a couple of experiences in some center for youth in the region of Lausanne, with teenagers in the small centers for young people of all ages, and that was clearly not a conference, because they would never have had the attention to sit down and, like, in school, what is this old lady telling us? But I've done that in the format of a discussion, and in that case I was not necessarily putting the accent on achievements or whatever. It was more like trying to communicate that if you find a passion, that it's hopefully a healthy passion, you can also improve your life, and especially, for example, with young people that had to spend very delicate years of their lives disconnected from their peers because of COVID. I feel that somehow in some areas, or in some, how can I say, circles, it's difficult for them to project and to really believe that they will actually have all the opportunities in the world, because they feel a little bit disillusioned and a little bit frustrated, right? So maybe trying to bring a story that lift them up and try to I really would like to have a good impact, whether it is for ocean protection or to help people believe in themselves and get out of their comfort zone and discover maybe that there is something that makes them feel alive and vibrate. It's something that I really want to do. So we'll see. Yeah. We'll see how in which of the many ways I can get there.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing today all these experiences.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching or listening to this podcast. And as well, please share your feelings about the experience that Vera went through and her preparation as well.
Yeah.
And if you went through similar difficulties in life, whether it's through freediving or other experiences, please let us know and comment. Yeah. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.